What did you think was normal around your hometown that you learned was totally bizarre or wrong when you left? Happy haircut day. Anytime someone would get a haircut, if you noticed you would say happy haircut day and the goal was to be the first one to say it to them. Didn't realize this wasn't a normal thing until college, lol. That's kind of adorable. I'm going to start saying this to people. In my childhood neighborhood, you could go to one house and get a handful of candy, a different house for a soda, another house for a cookie and yet another for a popsicle. Most of these people didn't have their own children. Only the cookie house had kids, but I think they were Mennonite and homeschooled. These folks just kept goodies around for the neighborhood kids. It didn't have to be Halloween or Easter. Any old Tuesday afternoon was fine with them. Anytime I've brought it up since, I've been told stuff like you're lucky you didn't get poisoned or kidnapped, but the community I grew up in believed it took a village to raise a child and were just truly being good neighbors. There is a certain stranger danger factor to taking food from random people, but these people don't sound random at all. They in fact sound very consistent and familiar. In my hometown on the last day of school, middle schoolers would walk home rather than ride the buses. We'd walk for literally miles. The high schoolers would drive around and throw water balloons at the middle schoolers. As a middle schooler, there was a thrill in trying to make it home without getting hit. But as it was South Carolina in the summer, it was hot enough to where you really didn't mind getting hit. As a high schooler, it was fun trying to nail some middle schoolers. It wasn't until I moved away that I realized it was unique to my hometown. It was this fun bonding experience, walking home from school with your friends, dodging or throwing balloons, and it was all in good fun. It was so innocent. A small town annual tradition. Not hometown, but one I lived in for a long time. Pop, 1000-ish. I worked at the corner store overnight. Every Tuesday night, the police officer in town and a group of teenagers would play hide and seek with CB radios. He would come in for coffee all the time, and the kids, I say kids, 18, 19, 20, would come in for cigs and snacks. The kids would plan all week for it. He wasn't ever really busy but liked to keep his weekends open. Their rules were: 1. Has to be a legal driver. 2. Had to stay in the car while hiding. 3. Had to stay on the same channel. 4. Stay off private property, not including the property they lived on. 5. Had to stay within city limits. 6. If he flashed you with the spotlight, you were out. 9/10 They met back at the store. One night we were talking about it and I told him how fun it sounded. He said it was. It kept them out of trouble. Built a good relationship with the youngsters and let him know where all the hiding spots were in town. They, police, also like to shoot fireworks in the town center at 5 o'clock in the morning to keep the birds from hanging out on the power lines and pooping on people going to work. I almost crapped myself the first time they did that. OMG, this sounds adorable and genius. Being second or third cousin by blood or marriage to almost everyone in town. Someone riding a horse or tractor through town. Everything closes on Sunday except the churches. People randomly stopping to ask you if you need a ride home if you're walking around. And not the creepy free candy kind of asking, but genuine, hey, how's your grandma? Need a lift? Going corning on Halloween. You break the hardened kernels off an ear of dried corn and go around the neighborhood throwing it at people's doors and then hiding, running away. Once I moved out of rural Pennsylvania, no one else had heard of it. It sounds like some parents just didn't want to clean up toilet paper or dog crap, so they all got together and agreed to spread a new tradition. There's a popular private Christian school in my hometown that I attended. The school is in a church building with the church cemetery next to it, and we ran for pay in the cemetery, had art in the cemetery and hung out in the cemetery at lunch. I thought this was normal until I went to public school. Yuppie. I mean, I've played in a cemetery like everyone else, but if anything, I got yelled at for it. My wife comes from a small village in rural northern England, and they had a thing in her village where on Shrove Tuesday all the kids would knock on all the houses and say please a pancake. Whoever answered a door would give them an orange. This is not a joke. Haha, this is some Bob Mortimer crap. I've never heard of this and I'm from North England too. Tractor Day. Friday of homecoming week for our local public high school meant every farmer's daughter and son who knew how to drive a combine tractor etc would drive it to school and park in the teacher's lot. My mom lives in a very rural area. They had that too. Another interesting one was they took a gun safety class or something like that in 3rd grade, and then everyone who passed got to go outside during recess and shoot shotguns on the playground. Definitely can't do that nowadays. Technically in my father's hometown in the Ukraine, that it's not normal to keep chickens to roam freely round your kitchen at night. My graduating class, from one of the 2 high schools in the entire county, had 42 people. I was related by blood to 7 of them and by marriage to 10 more. My HS guidance counselor was also my Sunday school teacher and the leader of T local Girl Scouts. We have an annual mosquito festival. It's 45 minutes to the nearest Walmart. On the last day of senior year, we drove around the school. It sits on a single block, in tractors combines, and one guy was on a riding mower. Small towns in Arkansas are weird, you guys. Sounds very, very similar to my small town in NY. Censorship. Our local TV station refused to air that NYPD Blue episode where the rest of the nation got to see Andy Sipowicz' bare butt. We also got all the N-bombs taken out of our copy of Huck Finn in school. He was slave Jim to us. And when Kick Butt premiered at our local theater, we didn't even get $signs on the marquee. It instead read Kick A. Reminds me of Zion. The movie theater was showing Heck Boy when I was there. Squirrels can be nice in other places. My hometown is notorious for nasty squirrels. They regularly attack people. Everybody has giant holes chewed through their garbage cans, mailboxes, etc. I DK anybody from my hometown who doesn't think squirrels are the worst animals, but all my friends from other places are very neutral about them. I love that you point out others are neutral about squirrels, when most of us didn't know we were supposed to pick a side. LOL. I'm from a part of Ohio that calls the strip of grass between the street and the sidewalk a divot strip. It is only known as this in our town. Travel about 40 minutes outside of here and nobody will know what you're talking about. Not sure how it started either. Pairing chili and cinnamon rolls together. Once I went to college outside of part of the Midwest. Everyone thought it was the strangest combo. You don't even need to leave the Midwest. I moved across Iowa and people looked at me like I insulted their mothers when I brought it up. I lived in Louisiana as a kid, and schools actually shut down for Mardi Gras, Monday and Tuesday for parades, then Wednesday because everyone was either hungover, in church, or both. When I moved to Delaware and asked when Mardi Gras was, people looked at me like I had 3 heads. I found out that day that Mardi Gras isn't a national holiday. It is. You don't need that kind of negativity. Guy I work with is from Vegas. In Kentucky a lot of us say please instead of excuse me, or pardon, when if you didn't quite hear what someone says. He said it took some getting used to. He'd be like, please what, lol. Playing outside on a Saturday and hearing the 12 o'clock sirens going off. I grew up in a small town off of the Houston Shipping Channel, surrounded by chemical plants. Every other Saturday at noon the neighboring plants would test their warning sirens. And when I say sirens I mean literal sirens, like Silent Hill style blaring. But none of us thought anything of it, other than oh it's noon, maybe mom has lunch ready inside. I got laughed at when I moved to North Carolina for calling a drinking fountain a bubbler. Honey dill. It's a dipping sauce that you serve with chicken fingers, and every restaurant has it and will usually offer it as the default dipping sauce if you order chicken fingers, or chicken tenders. Only learned a few years ago that it's a Manitoba only thing. In 2 years, we had 2 student-teacher marriages that happened shortly after the student graduated. I wouldn't say I thought it was totally normal at the time, but looking back, it seems really messed up. We also had a teacher and student, a junior living together, but since they were both female, it was assumed that the teacher was helping out a teenager in a difficult family situation. You know, I'm starting to realize why my school district has a policy about not being allowed to contact students until 2 years after their graduation. In my hometown people referred to green bell peppers as mangoes. When I was 9 I had a real mango and realized everyone around me was a freaking moron. In my hometown people referred to green bell peppers as mangoes. When I was 9 I had a real mango and realized everyone around me was a freaking moron. That must have been a surreal experience. The taste of an actual mango compared to what you'd been told was a mango. We weigh our town mayor each year to see if he has been spending our taxes on pie. Learned this wasn't the case for all towns when I went to uni. It really is a public get together in the town center. Crowds of people show up. I want to know so much more. The doctor in my country hometown required people to strip naked for every procedure. Need a tetanus shot? Strip. Have a gash on your scalp that needs stitches? Strip. Immunizations due? Strip. Later I found out that he only asked it of very young females, and almost everyone locally knew he was messed up but accepted his behavior, as no other GP would work in such a remote environment. Mothers who knew, and had the time, would insist on sitting in with his examinations. However, I was from an even more remote location and he was the closest GP. I never knew. I had my first city doctor's appointment for a prescription renewal when I was 18 and immediately started to strip my clothing. I have never heard such a shriek of no, 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 please, that is not required before or since. For example, I'm from the Midwest. When I moved to Hawaii, I learned that OPE doesn't make sense like anywhere else. Also, it's Aldi. There's only one. Whoops. OPE, excuse me. Let me just sneak right past here. Slightly specific. Here in Malaysia, we love us some Hainanese chicken rice. Look it up. In my city, the meal is served with some kind of chili paste and thick soy sauce. You usually put some of the sauce on the rice. It's taken for granted. Step outside the city, and not a single Hainanese chicken rice place will give you that sauce. They simply just don't do it. I'm talking about towns literally next door. It's really wrong because that sauce adds a nice salty element to the meal. I thought every town had a giant dinosaur statue on a hill in the middle of town. I thought it was normal to have thousands of bikers pour into your small town every August, and tourists from all over the world visiting the rest of the summer. In Folsom, CA, all the elementary schools had snail races, upper pencil, and the winners from each class, then school, would compete in the citywide Great Folsom Snail Race. It was rare for someone in the high school I attended to date someone else going to the same school, as it was very small and your classmates became more like siblings since you spent so much time with them from kindergarten on up. My class had 15 students to give you an idea. So it was shocking the first time I taught in a bigger school to see all of these couples everywhere, hanging out in the hallways, meeting up after class, and more. My school went the complete opposite. Everyone just dated everyone and it wasn't a big deal to date your friend's ex because you didn't have much of a choice. Boyfriend swapping happened a lot. It was weird. I was a little kid in the 80s and I remember in my neighborhood old school immigrant Portuguese ladies would wear all black and cover their hair with a scarf out in public if they were widows. I'm not Portuguese, but my grandma has worn black every day for over 10 years. Kind of a helluva thing when you think about it. Going ice blocking, we would buy square blocks of ice from the grocery store, drive to a nearby park with the perfect grassy hill late at night, set a towel on top of the block and ride it all the way down the hill, walk back to the top and repeat. So it's like sledding, except instead of riding on the ice you are riding the ice. Growing up, my town was pretty small. Everyone knew everything about everybody. When I left, I moved to a fairly large city and it was freeing that I could do anything and not have anyone talk about it. I thought there were an equal number of married lesbian couples with kids as there were straight couples in the world, because that's what it was like in our little town. Apparently not. Funny thing is, I'm originally from a state you would consider pretty conservative too, GA. Lived in a town with a population of less than 5,000. Greeting people that you meet on the street with a nod and a quick hi or good morning, afternoon, evening, even if you do not know them. Same goes when you're driving, but you just put up your left hand with the palm facing to your right and keep it stationary. No waving or anything. Moved to a city with a population of more than 100k. Boy, was people confused when I greeted them on the street or out driving. I live in the city and forget to wave sometimes when I'm back home on the dirt roads, and then I feel like a low-down city slicker with no manners. I live in a planned community, and the creator was very insistent that nature be hugely featured. We have a lot of public spaces, mostly pools and golf courses, and you can walk pretty much everywhere in the town on the massive amount of paths through the woods. People who aren't from the area are absolutely shocked to hear about this. Of course, people are also shocked to hear the crazy high rent and housing prices around here. Nova's a weird place. Apparently most of the US doesn't have burgeoning pagan and satanist communities. The satanists seem to exist only to push the religious fundamentalists' buttons, doing things like burning the Illuminati pyramid onto the side of a hill and petitioning to have the satanic incantation read in lieu of a prayer at the beginning of city council meetings. The pagans are quite genuine and they have some lovely traditions around solstice. We have a growing one. They just seem to buy billboards with things like "I try to be a good person every day because it's the right thing, not because I'm scared of heck," with an attractive smiling person dressed as a nurse or soccer mom. During award season, we have movie and TV billboards up with "For your consideration." I never know much about it until a friend visited from out of town to say how weird our billboards were so polite and asking her to watch their movie. Small Midwestern town. When funeral processions drive by, everyone pulls off to the side of the road to let them pass. Really important people, church leaders, government officials, can have a line of cars so long that people turn off their cars while they wait. In my hometown here in Canada, it's a heavily populated with tobacco farmers, or at least was when I was in high school. Lots of kids worked in tobacco or their parents owned the farms. The first day of school you had to go to your classes, get all your first day stuff out of the way, and you didn't have to return back to school for the rest of the week so you could finish up your harvest job. Neighboring towns don't do this, and sure if they still do it now since tobacco farms are getting few and far between around here. I was in Oregon and fireworks were going off on the 17th of June. I was impressed that they celebrated Juneteenth there. No one knew what the heck I was talking about. Texas thing, I guess. Because that's the day the Texas slaves found out they were emancipated. That's why it's only celebrated in Texas. It's also my dad's birthday and my very racist grandmother used to complain that she never had any help on his birthday because all the help was off celebrating. Wedding socials. It's a much loved Manitoba tradition. Before the wedding, the engaged couple rents out a hall and throws a party, dancing, cheap beer, and a raffle of sorts, which we call a silent auction of various items of various quality. Tickets are usually $10 and people who don't even know the couple often show up. It's a way for the couple to raise money for their wedding. A co-worker of mine, after expenses, made a few $1,000s. At his silent auction, he had such items as a tablet, day of golf, or a big screen HD TV among other items. I was in my 20s when I realized this doesn't exist outside Manitoba. It still boggles my mind that some people outside Manitoba, when they hear of it, consider the whole thing to be in bad taste. It was perfectly normal for middle and high school to be closed the first day of deer season every year. It was also perfectly normal for the high school boys to go hunting before school and keep their rifle and ammo in their pickup in the school parking lot. Heck, a trip to the local Walmart will reveal any number of hunting rifles proudly stowed in pickup window brackets from September through December. I never really thought it wasn't bizarre, but I didn't realize how uncommon it was. Girls in my hometown pretty much all get married and start having kids right out of high school. Someone actually got engaged at my high school graduation. It's not really encouraged for girls to go to college. It's not discouraged either, but none of the girls really have a desire to anyway. I had a friend who said she didn't plan on going to college and I asked why and she said, "Because Jacob's going to college. I don't need to." She meant that her longtime boyfriend was going to college getting a degree and would be working, so she didn't have to. She was going to be entirely supported by him. She was pregnant walking across the stage at graduation. Right now, they're living in a trailer and both unemployed. So, I'm only 21 but most of my peers from high school are mothers and or married. I moved to the PNW for college. It's not that common. My boyfriend is 25 and only one of his classmates has had a child. making huge mums around homecoming that could literally be the size of your chest, or decorated with so many of those noisy plastic cowbells isn't normal. From Texas, and still in TX. But it wasn't until college when some out-of-state people didn't know about mums that I realized how weird the whole thing kinda is. I grew up in Chicago and it was always important to make sure that you locked your door. When I went to college, a lot of my friends from all over the country found it strange because in the towns and suburbs they were from, nobody really locked their doors. Most of them wouldn't even lock their dorm rooms, and I would get teased for being one of the few that did. I don't really think it's wrong, but a lot of people found it bizarre I was so worried about locking my door. I live in Washington. Specifically, one of the towns that housed workers for the Manhattan Project back in the 40s. The local high school mascot is officially a B-52 bomber if I recall correctly. Bieber. The school has a mushroom cloud as its unofficial mascot. Not many people in the area make a stink about it. Growing up here we never thought anything about it, but as I've gotten older, I realized just how bizarre it really is. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.